Good. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Parks, Property and Streets Committee meeting on Monday, January 6, 2025 at 2:30 p.m. Janelle, could you call the roll call, please?
Paulson,
Here.
Bertle,
Here.
Aaron's,
Here.
and Roscoe was going to be appearing virtually, but I don't see her.
Okay, so hopefully she'll join us shortly.
Laskowitz.
Laskowitz is excused.
Excused. Okay, next up to approve the agenda for today.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, approve the minutes from the December 2nd, 2024 regular monthly meeting.
Question, page 3, agenda item number 5, Housen indicated that she will discuss this issue with Fitzgerald and report her findings of the next meeting of the committee. Did you have that conversation? Or are you
No, that's
reporting
why
on
it's
that
not on the agenda.
today? Okay.
Anybody else? I had a note on page 5, item G, former Logopus site design exercise. It states on line 36, starting on line 35, I guess. There were differing opinions regarding the preferred location for the dog park and whether or not small and large dog parks should be created. I didn't think there was differing opinions on that. I thought we all agreed there would be small and large. That's what I had in my notes. And then it goes on to say it was eventually the consensus that in the spring of 25, staff members shall make arrangements for a related survey. I think it was from Bay Lakes to be distributed to all property owners in the village. I thought we talked about all dog park users, and that's what my notes state. I don't know if anybody took notes on that.
Yeah, what I recall is the differing opinions were around what we thought versus what dog park users thought versus what some of the feedback we'd had at prior sessions was, which is why we wanted to have that. You know,
For a property owner in general. Is that what you mean?
anybody that might use it, which would be property owners in general. But
just-
specifically
Just
the
to
dog
cover
park.
anybody, but specifically, well, property owners would be dog park users,
Yeah.
because they could be seasonal. Okay, all right, so we won't change that. And then we can talk about that survey is, because I'd like to add that to the next agenda. Okay, those are the only edits or changes that I have, and there aren't any at this point, so. Do I have a motion to approve the December 2nd minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up, comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. The public is here, so does anyone have any comments, not correspondence, beg your pardon, for the committee, please? Not hearing any, okay. In addition, there is some correspondence from Miles Danhausen Jr. Regarding post office relocation. I'm assuming that the committee all read that. Okay. All right, we are on then next to item 5A.
Sorry for interrupting you,
Of course.
Louise, but Lily is on now.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Hi, Lily. Okay, item 5A, community garden planning.
Because of just a little summary, so we've been talking about community gardens out at the Loggerford site, and at the last meeting. We did some planning, where could they be located? And wanted to reach out and hear from Corey and her group on their ideas or thoughts on what is needed at a dog park. Maybe size of the plots, things of that nature, so I did reach out to Corey and ask that she be present at this meeting.
And Kathy, we run it together. Can I have your last name, please, Kathy?
Hinsky, Hinske.
Okay, thank you.
Before you guys begin, could you give the committee a little background on your experience with the community garden out on Autumn Court? Yeah, could you just give them a little background on your experience there?
Well, I have been down there for 8 years. It was, the gardens were there previous to that. I couldn't tell you exactly
Yeah.
the year that they were started.
We're thinking 9.
Oh, nine.
So, and Corey and I were elected to the 2-person board to try to take care of the garden
Uh-huh.
and to make sure that the bylaws were respected.
Mhm.
And, fees were accepted and
Things were taken care of.
care of.
Mhm.
And we just basically run it with the people that are partners in it.
Of the garden. yeah.
Mhm. I'm one of them, I know.
Uh-huh.
I have the worst little garden out there. I'm aware. Okay, I just wanted, for those that didn't, members of the committee or the public that didn't understand your, your role in this conversation, so thanks.
Okay,
All right.
is that it? No questions?
Well, we're gonna go through this, aren't we?
Well, oh, sure.
Okay. So walk us through the highlights of the handout.
Okay. As Kathy and I talked about it, it was the thing that comes up the most for us as far as the community gardens are smaller plots. Because ours are 25 by 40. A lot of people are looking for something like a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 15, something on a smaller, more manageable size where they can plant obviously less things. I'm going to talk about the water. The water system, obviously, since the
Oh.
Parks Committee, thank you all very much, put that in a few years ago, it has been a godsend. Because
It is.
hauling water was awful, so we think that's necessary. It needs a good 8 hours of sunlight a day because things need that much sun to grow. Certain things, some things can live on 4, some things can live on 6, but the majority of vegetables and foodstuffs need good drainage, obviously, so things don't flood. The village has been wonderful in bringing our garden mulch this past year, and it's been, such a weed saver, so, it helps keep the place looking clean, keeps the weeds down to a minimum. It's really a very vast help.
It's a lot better than straw.
Oh, yeah.
That's another concern. If you ever use straw, you're gonna get weeds in your garden like you wouldn't believe. Unless you use marsh grass. But the straw, that's when we decided to only use the wood chips. Because the weeds are hard enough to take care of down there. And
Yeah.
the wood chips, besides that, they keep the moisture in the ground. They're really, really a help.
And
Okay.
composting, which I know is a big talk with the Green Tier Committee and everything else, and with that, if you're building from scratch, to have a composting area would be wonderful. But like our gardeners, we had 2 separate ones at one time years ago, but people kept throwing the wrong things in them, so they became basically garbage bins. So the gardeners or the people that are going to be using it really have to be educated on what goes in and what cannot go in.
So the one in the middle isn't really compost.
No, it's all weeds and.
It was, at one time,
Yeah.
that's how it started out with your plants only. Well, people started weeding their gardens and
It
they
just
threw
threw
the
them in there
weeds
because
in
it was
with
a
the
shorter
comment.
distance than,
Mhm.
because otherwise they go over.
Well, that pile wasn't there then, but
Now it is.
that came when shop got built, yeah.
So otherwise, what do you do with your weeds
The weeds?
Yeah.
Just toss
when
them
you're
out.
pulling them?
We used to put them over behind the water treatment plant in that tall grass back there.
Uh-huh.
Cause they do eventually rot.
They
They
decompose.
they rot.
So
But if you put it in your compost, you will.
Yeah,
get
just
the
really
seeds.
You'll get weeds.
Yeah,
So if we were to do an additional, community garden, you need an area to toss weeds?
Yes. Oh, I didn't even think about putting that in.
Okay.
Cause that's an actual beautiful farm area. We don't know what kind of fertilizers or pesticides were used out there, but we know from our garden that the orchards that are being sprayed do have a little contamination. So testing the soil to make sure it's even usable before you start the gardens would probably be a good idea. Parking close to the garden so you don't have to be on the road. Nice parking area would be nice. Before you design the plots and assess them, actually make the paths for people to use, because you need a path going down the center if you're going to annex off and in between whatever gardens, because otherwise you're cutting through, like our gardens, anytime you want to walk through, you're cutting through somebody's garden.
Right.
And that leads to problems.
Well, to access to the water, you've got to go down the center and then
Mhm.
over.
And that's through
Right.
Steve's garden, so it's,
Right.
all- I mean, you're always cutting through
Yeah,
somebody's
you are.
garden to
You're right.
get somewhere.
and when we plotted out his garden area, it was we considered it a common area.
Okay.
And that was emphasized to,
Yeah.
to Steve, that this is gonna be used
Yeah.
for everybody to.
Because there's
and he
no,
didn't- Yeah,
so there's what they're explaining is there's an east-west path. There are no north-south
Mhm.
paths. walking paths in between each plot.
So
Right.
better layout with some good paths. would
Yes,
be
right,
yes.
How far apart should the rows be for those paths?
They don't have to be that bad. The ones between the gardens,
Yeah.
probably 3 feet
That's what I was
max.
thinking, 3 feet.
Mhm.
The main one down the center a little wider, because people are bringing in their wheelbarrows and whatever equipment they're gonna be using.
Yeah, because the one that's out there now is probably 6 feet at least. right?
Is it 6? I don't know.
It's pretty wide.
The one in front of it's 11 wheelbarrows of mulch. For in front of mine, to mulch it, so,
Wide,
no, but that's how many wheelbarrows of mulch it
but
takes.
that's length and width.
I can't figure, I don't,
Yeah.
that's like directionally
Okay.
dysfunctional.
Right.
I would say at least 5, Louise.
Cory?
Mhm.
The one going down the middle, I
Yeah.
would guess more than 60 inches wide, maybe
So 5 feet?
66.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe 7 feet. Okay.
Let's see, I don't know, or we're talking about past, what else? The area of ZZ. Maybe necessary to put up a fencing around, it depends upon where you're gonna locate your garden. Because if you're gonna be right on the roads of Woodcrest, you're gonna have people stopping all the time and helping themselves to other people's produce.
Right.
It will happen, especially if you say that this is a community garden, because we've had experience with this in the past. People say it's a community garden, we can help ourselves to it. They didn't realize that they were individually owned plots.
And a couple of years ago, the village was kind enough to put up signs saying these are private
Mhm.
gardens, and that's really reduced, that's completely reduced people.
But there's also a sign welcoming them if they want, a plot, to just call the village.
Right,
and
right.
Inquire.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
But if not right up against the road, you wouldn't be worried about needing a buried.
No, if it's, I don't think so. Well, it depends upon how far off of the road you are. If you visually can see all of this, the gardens, I'm sure that you will have somebody that'll be in there walking around.
There were probably 6 of our gardeners about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, who were planting pumpkins for the holidays, and some of them plant them for Gibraltar schools, and some plant them for other charitable, to donate and stuff. They were all stolen.
Mhm.
Somebody just obviously brought a truck or a van or something up and just wiped everybody's gardens.
We
out of
didn't
pumpkins,
have
so-
any problems either until the disc golf was
Yeah.
put in, and there is one, whatever the disc flies
The whole,
into
yeah.
is
basically.
right next
The
to
net.
the gardens.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, so that's when problems did start, when the public could come back there and see exactly what was going on. Yeah.
Mhm. But no problems now, right?
It's pretty much subsided. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, our tools, none of our belongings ever disappear. It's usually just,
Yeah, those aren't locked, I don't think.
no, all of our deck boxes and stuff are
So
wide
you
open.
each have, what's it called?
Deck box?
It's a deck box.
Well, if those who want them have them,
So it's like a trunk.
Yeah.
That's an outdoor,
yeah.
that has your tools and everything in, it. Okay.
Mhm.
And how, that's 5 feet?
Well, I've got
5 by
one
3?
that's this tall that I keep like plastics and stuff, and then I have another big one that I keep all my tools and. Kathy's got 2.
Well, no,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. They're the deck boxes that people get for their lawn furniture or their cushions.
Yeah,
That you put on your patios, that's what we're talking
Okay.
about. Mhm. The vinyl boxes,
Yep.
with the lid on them.
oh, I see, yeah.
But yeah, getting back to the fence, it all depends upon where you place it. That's just my opinion.
Fences are nice, but especially with the deers, but we found these things called deer no-nos. And we put them around and it keeps the deer 100% away from our gardens. So that's doing it naturally without any need for fencing or anything.
The other thing is signing, you will need, when you're initially starting out, I don't know how you're gonna designate or have someone so that people can go to pay their fees, to learn about your bylaws.
Mhm.
That's something that you probably will just take care of yourselves.
So
amongst
that's not
yourselves.
something that you guys have set up right now for
Yeah, we do
assigning
it.
plots and collecting
Mhm.
fees, or,
Yeah.
We do it.
Do it.
but would you expect that you would take on both gardens?
We have not
Or-
been talked to about that.
Well, I'm just curious your thoughts. I mean, would you want to take on both for preference, or would you prefer it be a separate group of individuals between the two?
I don't know what the village wants to do.
Well, when you get to that point, you can always call
Yeah.
us.
And what would you say?
It all depends, is it gonna be for 50 people, or is it gonna be for 25 people,
Workload dependent.
Cause Kathy works, I work. We garden a lot, we both have gigantic yards we take care of, it's, yeah, there's time, but not a lot of time.
Mhm.
Raised beds, that should be a gardener's choice, I feel. There are a lot of people that just want level beds, they just want Mother Earth. Yeah. And we have a few gardeners by us that do have boxes, but they bring in their own soil, their own fertilizers, everything. Whatever you want to do with your plot, it's entirely up to them. Yeah, but that's what they're. We don't expect the village to do anything for us.
Yeah.
And every gardener has their own, I mean, we've got plenty of gardeners, I'm sorry, I got a concussion on Saturday, my mind just not, is really.
God.
Right next to me, Helen and John, they're in their 80s and they garden a 40 by 50. And they are on their hands and knees in the dirt and they would never change it for the world. And then most of over half of our gardeners are bare dirt gardeners. They just want to be in the ground.
What you'd be looking for is a space, an organization to the space with some paths and different plot sizes.
Mhm.
And then after that, it's up to whoever wants that.
Cause I'm like, I have a raised bed for my herbs, but I don't use them for anything else, and people that have potatoes don't want them, and people that have onions or garlic, I mean, it depends on what you wanna grow, and if they're allowed to grow their own choice, they're renting a spot and growing it themselves. Everything, different soil types, different,
You want
everything.
sunny dirt with
Well,
grass and water.
you've got a gorgeous garden in your front yard.
How many plots are there out there right now?
16,
Are they all rented?
yes,
Does everybody get one or do you have people having multiple plots?
3 of us have multiples,
And how much is it per plot
25.
a year?
For the 25 by 40. Yeah. If they want, and if they have 2 of them, then it's 50 for them.
Would you think you'd want a graduated price structure for smaller
Yeah.
plots? Like-
We did take one of our plots and make it smaller because we had so many requests for smaller plots. We've got a 10 by 15? Isn't that what Lynn has? Lynn, we cut it in half. Yeah. First Steve has half and Lynn has, yeah. And they paid 15? And then, Alan's got a smaller one, he pays 15.
Have you got, now, getting into the weeds here, away from the design, but from an insurance standpoint, like, do they sign any type of paperwork or anything to use the property?
I can't imagine what kind of legal. Unless it be liability, but it's never, ever come up. No.
No insurance, no contracts.
Right.
Okay, and then as far as as your soil goes, I mean, certainly Parks and Eric and his team have been extremely helpful with whether it's the hosing, thank you, the hosing or mulch and things like that, but in terms of your own individual plot, you're responsible for the soil, what you want to do with it, how you want to fertilize it, topsoil, whatever you want to do.
Well, that's another thing, if you're gonna go organic or not. That's a decision, that's on page 2, it's just some ideas for rules and bylaws and things like that we have run into, that we have put in our rules.
Well, if you're organic, the whole thing has to be organic, right?
It should be,
I mean,
yes.
otherwise it's.
Well, they were using, when Kathy and I first got there, they were using Roundup quite a lot. And,
In the garden.
yeah, we stopped that when we took over. And there was a gentleman who used tires as raised beds. That cost us $400 to get rid of those babies when he left, and then we left the garden plain for 2 years, so it could seep out and
Be toxic. Sure.
yeah. So I mean, we're kind of, but. So those are all things that you need to put in your bylaws so that people know.
So do you have bylaws on the current garden?
Mhm.
Okay.
We do.
Does
that came in
does the
here.
village have a copy of those?
I don't know. I mean, these all predated
Kathy and I, we've modified some of them, because some of them were really obscure. Just within our group, but I don't know if they do. Would you like a copy?
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
aware of any bylaws. It's an interesting concept, the way it's currently run, 'cause it's very, there's no village oversight of the gardens. So it's like, these women are managing it, this is great, but there's like no contracts, there's no insurance, there's no copy of the bylaws, there's no approval process.
It's simple.
It's
It
very
works.
basic and simple, and when
That
somebody
is-
wants a garden, they just ask if we have any availability, and if we do, they have a spot, and if they don't, we gather their names and.
Yeah, you're just kind of like a friends group or managers doing it on behalf of the village, but we should have bylaws.
But the
Something
money
that's
that,
what
the
it
money that we raise, you know, that like the $25 for each one, like went to pay for the deer no-nos, it pays our water bill every year, it pays for. Well, we
The
used to have to
hoses.
get mulch and straw and all that, it paid for that. This year, all of it's gonna go for hoses, because all of our hoses burst
They
last
all
year.
work.
And that's gonna be a few $100s. So, I mean, we, 1 year we might not, and then all the manifolds and everything that we have to purchase so that everybody can have access to everything, what comes from that fund.
How is that money held?
In her house, in an envelope.
In the mattress?
In her pillow.
Kathy's the treasurer.
In her guest room. Yeah.
It's a very laid back,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's just,
Going back to the handshake day.
yeah. And we've never had a problem.
No.
It's just amazing. We have never had an issue.
Never, ever.
People, gardeners are honest people.
How much
Except
do
for the
the,
ones that seal the pumpkins.
yeah, except for them.
Well, those weren't gardeners. I will guarantee you, those weren't gardeners.
There's somebody that needed. It's tempting, let me tell you, the pumpkins look good.
Oh, last year they were awesome.
Yeah, they look great. And some of it goes to the food pantries, right?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Like when John and Helen live in Cedarburg, for the most part now, they're getting up there in age, but they still plant their whole garden. And they'll ask Kathy and I to pick for them. They've got a humongous asparagus bed and tomatoes up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And when they're gone for 2 weeks at a time, they say, whatever you pick, take to the food bank.
Yeah.
All of us take it to the food bank when,
Well, the amount of asparagus we
abundance.
have and, I'm not gonna say it.
raspberries.
No, don't say it, no, but. we don't want everybody to know.
And rhubarb. I mean, there
Oh
are
my
some
God, the
invasive
rhubarb is
plants, so
so
that's another thing they have to decide if they're gonna allow invasive plants or not. Like our raspberries, our asparagus and our rhubarb, well, asparagus isn't invasive, that's just a delicacy. And the rhubarb and stuff is an invasive plant, so to speak, because it just grows abundantly. And the blackberries, so you have to decide if you're gonna make a separate section for that, or if you're going to allow it on, for them to put it right in the ground or on pots or.
Especially your different mints.
Oh, never, no mint,
No mint.
no mint
I love
of
mint,
any
but
kind.
mint is-
Yeah.
You can't get rid of it.
yeah, it's spicy.
I have a question. So you have 16, they're all rented. What type of demand, like if we're looking at doing another garden,
Mhm.
what type of demand, like how many plots should we add? Because if you're at capacity now, I mean, I'm guessing there's a lot of people that don't even ask because there's no room,
Right.
or are not aware of it.
Well,
Or the
that's what's
big, I
kind
mean,
of
they're big
upset
gardens.
that Forrest Wells wasn't here, because a couple of years ago, he asked for one. And when I called him and said, hey, we have one available, then he said he couldn't because he was still working and I don't know what he did instead. So he would have been a good person to ask. But,
I think you're right, if they're smaller, they're much more manageable.
and a lot of people wanted like 10x10s. I mean, my mom used to have one in the city, a little 10x10. And that was her, she'd go get home from work and she'd go and sit in her garden and just for, an hour after work and decompress, and she'd come home and be a good person.
Mhm.
It's a healthy place to be. It's a very healthy place to be.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I do. So when we first started talking about a community garden on the new property. There were two different tracks in that conversation. One was duplicating exactly what you have now and allowing more people to have
Mm.
plants. The other was a true community or urban garden or whatever, where you can come, you can put in time. You can take the harvest, like what some
On
people
Beach Road.
thought was
Yeah.
going on. Can both of those coexist side by side?
Sure. I
I
don't
don't
see
see
why
why
not, as long as it's clearly marked.
Yeah.
People are really good in general, and I think that, you know, like, we have not had an issue since you guys posted, the Parks Committee put out those signs for us.
So it was information.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think if people are made aware and if you put up a sign or, you know, something that says private gardens past this point or something like that. Cause I know, have any of you been to the one on Beach Road, the community garden down on Beach Road?
Mhm.
I mean, that's what you're talking about, where you can come in, there's a work assignment board posted. You can do a chore and then you're allowed to pick some veggies and take them home. I don't see why not.
It's all in the honor system, right?
Yeah, it's 100%.
That's too hard to manage, yeah.
Mhm. I mean, I don't see why it couldn't work, as long as the private gardens were clearly
Sure,
marked.
sure.
Who plants it, at the Beach Road Garden?
Oh, that young couple that have that underground,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. They plant it all?
them and her father-in-law. And then there's a manager, the farm
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah, okay. Hidden Acres.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never know the name.
So we have no idea. Or we're getting no direction on how many additional plots we
I
should be
would, you know,
thinking
put a
about.
push, find out, I mean, it's January. You know,
You could
put
start
something
out
in the
with 10.
paper, yeah.
You know, if they don't rent or if they don't lease out, you're not losing anything.
put
You
something-
know, and if there's a demand, then you have the land, the acreage that you can just make more.
Never heard.
Cause
that.
your
Good
big
question.
issue are reserved. The guys who just have to cut the sod away. Right. And then the dirt's exposed for the gardener.
One of the nice things with the Lagerquist site is we have the old picker cabins, which make really good tool sheds. So you could have one per large, let's say a garden, let's say a space has 10 plots in it. And then they have use of like one picker building for all the tools that go with them. That would work.
Would you want tools more accessible, like within your garden?
Well, we have no choice.
I know that, but I'm saying.
I don't know, a young partial of those cabins. I'd
Well,
like
we'd
to see them
to-
at the historical society.
We'd like
but-
to keep them and utilize many of those structures on that property as possible.
Oh, I get that.
To keep the feel. Now, we may, depending upon the layout of everything that we'd like to eventually have out there. We may have to move, you know, some of them or some. But yeah, I don't.
You want to maintain that whole farm atmosphere with the little
Yeah,
cabins.
yeah.
I understand that. I mean,
That would work as long as the cat or the shed is as close to the garden as possible.
Yeah, because
So they
otherwise,
don't have to carry
yeah,
everything.
you're not gonna be going,
Cause if they have wheelbarrows,
yeah.
you know, all of their shovels, their spades, their rake, their steel rakes, regular rakes, shovels, that, you know, that's heavy.
That's a lot to carry back
Yeah.
and forth.
and if there was a shed, they could actually leave a rototiller out there instead of having to haul it back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would charge them rent, you know, if they would have their little spot in that shed also. I don't know.
Well, when, I know the examples I've seen with like True Community Gardens, it's, everyone gets to just check out the tools and use them and.
Oh,
Oh, and
An
that,
honor
like a
system.
rental thing? Or not rental, but you just use it?
Your
You-
fees go towards that.
Yeah, just go in and
Okay.
use them and you put them back. Like I said, like with the honor system, everybody knows,
sure.
if you don't put them back, they're not gonna be there next time. We'll start donating tools before you know it, you've got a lot of stuff in there.
Up here, that would probably
Yeah.
work.
I think so too.
Mhm.
Cause every time someone, like, when the Glabes left, they left their wheelbarrow and all their tools for everybody to use. I mean, that's, people do that.
Yeah.
Even up here, people, do, you know, at our gardens, people do that. All those tools piled around, the compost bins were all.
And there's a couple, at least 2 wheelbarrows, right?
Mhm. Well, Steve, the one up front is Steve's, that belongs to him, but anybody can use it.
Yeah.
And the one in
And the one
back was the
back.
one that was left.
The one by the water.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was left.
Okay.
And those water tanks back there,
Yeah,
those are the villages.
Yeah,
Cause when we didn't
Okay.
have our hydrant,
uh-huh.
that's, we would get water.
There's like a cistern back there. It's a big, well, you know, big water tank in the back of the, towards the orchard. But we didn't, that's empty now. It wasn't full this summer.
No,
Right.
well, we have the water, we
Yeah.
used to have to fill it because they would charge us $35 every time they turned the water on.
Got it.
So we would get all those filled and get us
everything that
anything
we
we could
could.
find to fill
Yeah,
that we could use for water
Uh-huh.
before we had to turn it back
for
on.
the process. Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So the water you have now is metered?
Yes. It's not drinkable, but it's wonderful water for our garden.
So nobody's ever tested the soil where those gardens are, or tested the vegetables?
Our garden, we also, I check my soils for, so I know with
Oh,
pH levels
but
and
not
stuff like that.
arsenic and.
No, I don't wanna know. Cause it's the only place I can garden, I live in a condo. No,
We've been eating it wild so far, so good.
I'm
Yeah,
still
right.
alive.
Right, they look like they should, so we're not worried.
Yeah.
You're in shape.
Cucumbers.
No,
Yeah.
everything's according to the package.
Mhm.
Well, thanks. We really appreciate it. This is good information.
That's it.
Feel free, if there's something else that comes up or whatever, you can just send a note to the committee. It'll be included in a packet just for, if there's other information.
And if you need anything else from us, let us know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so no action coming out of that, just information, right?
And do we have a timeline for when we wanna define what we want that to look like, or?
I don't know if we're there yet. We reviewed the space at the last meeting.
I think once we do the survey for the dog park and have a better feel for what we need, because I think it's imperative, especially for the dog park, if we do want to move it in 10 years or something like that, we need to determine the placement of it and start planting trees so that there is shade and wind protection and other things. So I think that will
Yeah,
be done,
understand what we need to do there. And once we know that, we can
Yeah,
start
because the
to
right?
revisit the puzzle board.
garden
Right.
doesn't like shade, so it has to be,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, so that's. Would
I
be the next.
know on the Wiltie grant, application we made, it had said that if that grant was received, we would work on this community garden as part of it. So the people that lived in that project had a place to garden. I think that is when it would be pushed up, like if we had to move forward with that project at that time, to meet the grant deadlines, that would mean we'd probably have to address this sooner than we may have wanted to.
When do we hear back if we, one way or the other?
They didn't give us a deadline. I think it's before January 20th.
Okay.
And would there be an option, I can't remember if I brought this up before or not, if we talked about it, that on phase 2, that's the higher or lower ground, whatever, where we can't get sewer and water too easily, and we have to have that whole cistern, and probably will never put housing on that, would we consider putting the community garden there
I think we could.
for that subdivision, whatever you wanna call it?
We could, I think we were looking here because of the farmstead and the picker camps, but we could. Now, I think we'd wanna look a little closer at the soil, as you know, that soil. I'm sorry, Corey, and you guys cover your ears. We know that soil didn't test well, so, but is it safe enough for a vegetable garden? And maybe that means hauling new soil in or something too, to that area. It would make more sense if it was right there.
It would, and that wouldn't detract from also still having a community garden on the Logger's property also.
Right.
I mean, that way, it's right there in their neighborhood, only they can access it.
I mean, you could also have nonprofit gardens, right, where
Sure.
the Boy Scouts have a garden and that's what they use for fundraising, or Old Trusa has one they're using for fundraising, or different, segment it out that way too.
On Wiltie?
On Lagerquist or anywhere.
Oh, because Wiltie.
It wouldn't make sense
talk
on
about
Wiltie,
something
I don't
different. No, it doesn't.
On the public property.
So if it's on Wiltie, the only people that can use it are people that are residents over there. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Yeah, because 3 community gardens within an eighth of a mile of each other, you know, you have to, if it's just for those.
But
residents,
all,
then it
but
would
all
make sense.
serving, different purposes.
Right, I got you.
And I think there is a demand. We've had people ask about them and then the hospital wanted to, or the medical center wanted to do one.
But they didn't.
They don't have room, but I think there is interest. Whether they
Yeah.
turn into gardens, we'd have. to
Yeah,
see.
exactly. There's interest, but then there's also. You
And
know,
also
gotta get it
probably the
done.
least expensive thing the village can create for utilization.
Yeah,
but yeah, I just want to make sure that they're all viable.
and to help with the food desert issue.
Okay, 5B, parking concerns, Mill Road East. Hello.
We need some yellow paint.
Okay, does that give us a little? Do we need
Sure,
background?
so Tom Seegard, he owns Mill Road Gallery. And they've called several times about people parking out there, blocking their driveway. Basically vehicles frequenting Chopper parking in front of their gallery. The area they park in is designated as no parking, but they park there anyway. He's talked to the owners of Chop and he's had no luck getting people to stop parking in front of them. He's called the police, that didn't work. I know he's talked to Eric and I've discussed it. Mr. Seeger wanted to know, would the village put cones out there? He said, we can't do that due to liability concerns. And I said, look, the committee has spent a lot of time on no parking areas on Mill Road. So let's ask the committee, because that's really, as staff, we don't have the ability to designate areas like that. So I told him I would bring his concern to the committee to discuss.
So I guess 2 questions. One, what's the village's current, and we'll deal with another parking issue later in the agenda. How are we addressing ticketing vehicles that are parked illegally?
So we
don't.
we're going to
Oh,
in
we
March.
did. I used to give tickets.
In March, we have a code compliance officer starting, but she's supposed to do more education about where you can and cannot park instead of giving tickets. So we'll see how that goes, because in a tourist town, of course, educating, they're only there one weekend or one time, so that, maybe you're better off ticketing, I don't know. But we do, and then there are certain, I know SBA at one time could give tickets to people.
Yeah, I gave a lot of tickets.
Once in a while I give tickets. We don't know,
Very good
we're supposed to get copies of all the tickets that are written. And we don't, so we don't know how many tickets are actually being written out there. We know not a lot are being paid. We know not all the tickets written are paid. Cause I know Heidi has a challenge, tracking them to make sure we're getting, that they're getting paid. So there is that issue. I mean, you could ticket them, but
The ticket books had a second copy. The second copy is turned into the admin office. Whether or not they get paid is a different story, and usually they didn't get paid. But I gave a bunch.
some do pay, some do pay.
Well, that's good.
For the areas where you were giving tickets, did you notice a behavior change?
No, not really. And a lot of them were locals, by the way. These are not visitors. Most of them I gave to were locals. Same with Sharon. These are not
Police,
visitors.
the sheriff's office, they couldn't ticket unless for some of
Because
these,
It's a village ordinance and sheriff doesn't enforce that.
right, and then some of them, they would still, if there was a sign there on, sometimes they would do it if we had it signed. So we couldn't do much because we didn't have it signed. Well, this last summer, Eric went through and put a ton of, at the direction of the committee, a lot of no parking signs throughout the village. Or no parking over the line, or no overnight parking, no camper parking. That has helped, because if the sheriff is here and he has time, he at least now can help us, because there's a sign there that can defend his ticket. So that helps a little bit.
I guess the second question is, I haven't looked, is there good marking there with yellow
So this is the
curbs
front of
and-
the gallery.
Okay, so,
So there's yellow on either side of the drive,
but not across the driveway, so.
because it's a driveway,
So,
that's why. There's no curb there, it's a driveway.
There is a yellow line
Right, I'm looking right here,
on
I
the
see it,
pavement.
yep,
Mhm.
There's a line.
From curb to curb across our
Single
parking
line in
lot,
front.
single line.
Yep.
Yellow.
But it's a very narrow line and it hasn't been painted in a very long time.
yeah, because I'm looking and
It's
this
not
is
real
a
effective.
pretty
And in the
current
winter, the
picture.
ice covers it and people
So
don't care.
is the line you're talking about between the cement parking lot, sorry, the cement sidewalks and your blacktop parking lot? Is
No.
it there?
There's a
So the
sidewalk.
Sidewalk,
Yeah,
the access to get into my parking lot.
yep.
The yellow line,
Ah,
and it goes to either curb,
Mhm.
and the curbs are painted yellow.
As well.
yeah, okay, I can see it better now. Do you see this?
yeah, it's a kind of a line.
The problem
Yeah,
is that.
it's there, I
they
see it.
Park on top of the line.
Yeah.
The yellow line.
At
Can't see
night.
it.
It's not effective.
Yeah, and it's narrow.
What I'm interested in, if we can get it same way CHOP has. That will, I think, prevent this problem anymore, and it's parking where it's not necessarily just on night. Sometimes it's 2, 3 days. And I call the police up and they tell me it's not their problem, it's your problem. And I talk to you and you tell me, no, it's not your problem, it's a police problem. Okay, and I can't seem to figure out who to talk to. And it's not a major leaguer, but the problem that you get when you have your parking lot blocked is I'm losing my right to make a living. Because I can't have people access my building from the street.
Yeah,
And
so,
usually it's somebody like a camper or a pickup truck with a camper on the back.
Or a
And then-
delivery,
Yeah.
food delivery. Truck.
yeah, the village can police it, you know, if it's marked no parking. And then there's also the time thing, because we don't have anybody that's readily available when somebody calls to quick run out there and see what's parked there. I know we've done that twice and you go out there and there's nothing there, there's nobody
I
there,
know.
so.
I don't think that would be as effective as using that crosshatch pattern. I think that would say it's pretty much solve the problem for me. All right,
It'd be
And
more
then-
evident to have those diagonal yellow lines if possible.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well,
that,
let's give them a gallon of paint.
Well, that's
So-
what I'm asking for, some yellow paint and just do diagonals across so that that yellow line is more evident, because people say, oh, well, we'll park our car on top, no one sees it.
When you look across at that stuff we marked off by CHOP, do you ever see cars parking in there?
The only time I see, the only time I see
Deliveries.
cars parked in shop,
Oh, yes,
it's up
deliveries.
to a time frame. It's in the morning, and I think he allows parking when he starts his business in the afternoon there. Okay, I'm not sure about that, but I think that's the case. The only time that I see any parking in that crosshatch area there, right, is usually delivery trucks.
Which we know they can,
And they're there and they're gone.
we don't have anywhere else to
Yeah,
make
small
it.
amount of time.
What we're asking is not a curbing. We're asking the access that I have from Mill Road over my drive-in area to my parking lot. There's a big difference between a curbing and an access to where my customers park. And that's the part I want to have a little more obvious as far as no parking. The single line works, yes, it does, but usually I have to go out and tell people, you can't do this.
Especially at night.
Yeah.
They're anxious to get to dinner and they wanna walk and park in front of us.
do you have a diagram of exactly what you want painted? or-
Sure, I can draw it up for you.
Cause you would wanna make that line, first of all, it's faded, so you wanna, fill it in with
Enhance.
fresh paint,
Mhm.
and it sounds like you wanna make it wider, right?
Well, we just like to make it more evident, whatever the village feels they can do to make it more
I think that's
evident.
why
that
Julie
when
wants to see
someone
what
says,
you're thinking
on
about.
your corners, you have slanted lines now
Uh-huh.
because we don't want to have someone
That
parking
means no
there.
parking,
So
yep.
that you can't make that curve and you run into a car.
Mhm.
Basically, that's kind of the design we're looking for, something that makes it more evident. We don't want to put signs every 2 feet, then we can't get out of our parking lot,
Mhm.
so.
Signs are high pollution. Just assume not.
And like you say, having a sign work
50-50.
Yeah. sometimes it looks-
It's not always guaranteed.
Okay, so if you could, provide, Bridget, if you could provide
Absolutely.
a rendering or,
And I can measure it up to from
Yeah.
where the line is, right up to the
yeah,
relieved curve is what we call it.
Yeah.
Because you can drive into our parking lot.
okay. Okay. let's
And
do
who do
that.
I submit that to the admin?
Yeah,
office?
to Julie Schmelzer, to the administration
Okay,
office.
Julie, I'll have that for you.
Sure.
And specifically, what do you want? You want measure and width, right?
Yep, we need to know exactly where you'd want it and the dimensions of it.
Good.
Because we have to make sure it doesn't protrude too far into the street and check all of that out.
30 feet somewhere in that area.
Across.
That's the width of my parking area. So we're not
Get
talking
about 4 or 5
major
cars in
thing.
there, yeah.
And I'm talking about the same kind of a paint pattern that you have already installed by Chop.
Yeah, you've got distances, spaces between the striping.
You know, we may have to think about, do we do that for all the businesses on there? Because I'd hate to go through the expense and then next month somebody else comes in.
Well, this is just Mill Road. There's nobody else on our road that has a relieved parking area. Everything else is a parking lot. We don't have a lot. We have a access for people to pull into our front door, pick up what they've purchased and leave. Also for the fire department and rescue,
Ambulance.
we can't have someone sitting there if we have a fire. How do we get that car out of the way? There's a danger here as well for our own well-being. Being here 53 years in the village, paying our taxes, we feel we should be listened to at least a little bit and given some answers.
Sure,
What
that's what we're
can
trying
be
to do.
done.
I got you, okay. All right, so you're gonna give us a rendering or
Yeah,
of what
I'll
you have
try.
in mind,
best
okay?
I can. Mhm.
Yeah, and Google Maps, it's easy to see the length and what you're, or just walk over there and see what you're working with, so, okay.
Eric, did you have anything to add to that?
As far as conducting with the sheriff's department, I've reached out to the lieutenant probably 5 times now. He's got a hold of him a couple of times. He said, yeah, we're gonna try to get somebody out by you. Obviously, it's not a high priority for them, so I'm still gonna try to reach out to them, because we did spend all that time last year putting up all these signs, and I would like to see those signs at least be enforced. You know, on this, by the sheriff's department, if need be. You know, I don't want our residents to be having this runaround where the sheriff's department now can just go back and say, no, it's the village's problem. It's like, we're trying to comply with the sheriff's department to get, you know, a little bit more help from them. So as far as that, I'm still working on that.
Just to clarify though, it is a village problem.
It is a village
It's a
problem.
village ordinance and the sheriff will help us out with
Right.
one, you know, that fits into their schedule of laws, but.
Correct, but
they are
I just
village
want more
problems.
clarification from the sheriff's department when they're interacting with our residents. For them just to go ahead and say, oh, it's the village's issue, and then the resident has to go back and play this back and forth game with the village and then the sheriff's department. I just want I want more clarification from the sheriff's department being like, hey, we put all these signs up for you guys to help us out here. Don't be throwing this just back on us and our residents and not leaving our residents like without knowing what direction to turn type thing. So I need more clarification from them around signs that the village invested in and like all the staff time that was putting these things up. So I'll still be working with that and, yeah, I stopped over, I had a conversation with Tom. We had talked about putting in that grid pattern right there with that existing yellow line, as I think that's pretty reasonable for us to, you know, install for him if the committee decides that's what the direction they want to go. That shouldn't be too much of a hassle for the streets department to handle.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can we leave?
We're-
We have a dog in the car.
Yeah, yeah, it's cold out there.
Thank you very much for listening to us and
Sure.
thank you very much for your opinion.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
so
know the
maybe
story.
we can solve that, next meeting with that, or you just want to include it in staff report, that's fine.
Okay, we'll need action on it, so I'll.
Okay. Number 5C, parking concerns, Chris Kindle Market.
So this was put on here,
Denise requested this.
Yep. so, correct.
So I just wanted to have a conversation, from my understanding, everything that had no parking signs and everything that was roped off, nobody parked by. They just go, to the edge of that, and then they start parking along the highway, which is legal to do.
But I would say except for the village portion of 57, where there are no parking signs.
Mhm. They park in Liberty.
They were parked all up and down at the first day, and then Chris Kindle Mart went out and put out their own
Yep.
extra no parking signs, and that seemed to address that, but yes. Then the rest of it all went to Liberty
Right,
Grove.
well, and John Anderson or John Nelson spent, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours out there telling people to move and not park. The staff was out there telling them not to move, not to park there. And when there was a Door County Sheriff there too.
Yeah, it wasn't until they put signs physically blocking.
Yep.
The shoulder, which kind of surprised me that they were parking, because he's got the great no parking signs all up and down 57.
Right,
And
but
yet
they,
they
well,
still park right next to
it
it.
takes a while.
So you didn't want to have this conversation.
I just don't, it's not that I didn't want to have it, I don't know what else we can do about it. I mean, if Liberty Grove wants to put out signs, they could do that, I guess. If they want.
Well,
It doesn't, I don't really care.
For our portion, could we deputize somebody at Chris Kindle Mart? Or
Why?
part of the historical society, at least ticket folks parking on 57 instead of them having to do the extra effort of putting
I
out
don't know
additional
why.
signs and.
I don't know why.
Because it's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, there were people parked all up and down.
Well aware, I
ignoring-
worked there,
village
I worked
signs.
there every year since they've had it. Well aware. I'm not, it's just my opinion. We've done everything we can. At a very, not inexpensive, at a cost to us,
Cost to who?
the village,
I didn't know who us was.
us is Sister Bay. Where they park is Liberty Grove.
Well, I'm not talking about the Liberty Grove Park since that's outside the village.
Mhm.
I'm talking about the Sister Bay Park. And at least ticketing folks parked in front of no parking signs.
To get them to go to designated parking areas to reduce because of safety concerns.
Oh yeah, pulling out off of Flint Ridge was almost impossible to see.
I mean, I don't know what traffic was like, but, I had, talked to Bunny one day, and I don't know what day it was over the 3 weekends.
Bunny is our shuttle bus driver.
And I think she said that one day she did 17 people. Is that possible?
That's not possible. First of all, Bunny didn't really stick with her route. Most of the time. John talked to her on multiple occasions to remind her what her route was. And then she did run her route. So, no, because we took counts and that is not possible. But that's.
And she reported to us it was very light. They didn't have a lot of riders. But I
Well-
don't know anything about the route or anything.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly ask Chris Kindle, and you can ask them what they got, what their counts look like for not just the shuttle bus, but also for the school buses.
I thought
Because
the
there were,
school buses looked pretty full loading and unloading, at least when I was
they were,
there.
and there was somebody on the school buses, someone from Chris Kindle, on the school buses with the school bus driver their entire route. So to that extent, they do their best to let people know. First of all, instruct the driver on where to go, because most of those drivers, it's Cabusson, and most of those drivers aren't from here. So they wanted to make sure they knew the route. And then we also, I made signs to give people that pulled up and wanted to park on premise. And we explained that, that was for folks that work there or vendors or volunteers and so forth. And we gave them maps on where to go and stuff. And so, you know, I saw the buses when they pulled up to let people off, so how many people got off, right? And then also when they pulled up to see how many people they picked up. So did she have, remember, the buses go every half hour. So did she maybe have 17 for 1 half-hour period? I don't know. I really don't know. But she did the route, I'm right, yeah, she did not have the park and ride. Because there were 2 park and rides. One was at the old Shopko, one was at St. Rosalia's. And then the other one, which I think it was Bunny's, and it's a smaller shuttle bus, so she certainly had a smaller pickup and drop off, were hotels. Where people could just jump on at a hotel instead of driving a car, you know, to a parking lot and then getting on it. So she could have picked up fewer people, I think, I don't know.
Okay.
But she did on a couple of occasions go to the park and ride parking lots, which, you know, was assigned to a different thing, which is neither here nor there, to tell you the truth, but, people, human beings, you know, I can't tell you how many people said, why can't I park there? Meaning like right there, right? But 1211 actually had paid parking. It was only $10 and a number of people wanted to go there, so we directed them there and that filled up fairly quickly, at least that first Friday and Saturday. I can't say after that. Because you could park there and then just walk down behind or, you know, right past the barn. And I'm assuming they'll do that again.
Okay. So the $10 parking lot was on Times property
It was on 1211.
or 1211.
Yeah, same thing.
And then the overflow parking that the Historical Society and Times share. That was for vendors only,
No, it
not
was,
for the public?
yeah, on premise, it was a combination of vendors, volunteers, historical society, there's a bunch of there were different people that came and went that could have been, there was music, they could have been there for music and then left. So most of those cars that were there came and went, because the shifts were not, well, except vendors. I mean, that's basically 11 in the morning, they got there at 9 or so to set up, and they left at 8. So they were there for 11 hours if they were a vendor, or they had somebody that was with them too. There could have been 2 people in a booth. But if you were volunteering, most of the shifts are 2 to 3 hours, depending on what you're doing.
Did 1211 donate those funds from the parking too?
I don't know,
Yes.
because that's something with the
Yes.
Historical Society.
They did.
They donated it, okay. So I don't know, because that's.
Thank you. That was the answer I was looking for, because I'm like, because they use the Historical Society's property
The money went to the historical
for
society.
free, but then they're charging for
So
you
they
know
were-
where I'm going with that. I don't need to go further.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were helping.
Do you know why they didn't want to use the highway shop property this year?
They didn't use it last year either, but I don't know.
Sure they did, because I made arrangements for them.
They did?
And when I asked them if they wanted to do it this year, they said no.
I don't remember anybody parking there last year. And it
Yeah.
wasn't a shuttle bus ride.
No, it was so they could walk, and I remember.
So they
talking
walked
to
down the
John.
highway?
Yeah, I remember talking to John, they used it last year. I think it held 70 cars, 50 or 70 cars. is
Did
what
you
we
ask
had
John why
arranged.
they didn't want to do it?
I just asked him to email it, because last year I took care of arranging the contract for him. And this year I said, you know, I can't do it this year, or you can do it, and he said, we decided we're not gonna use it this year. I just left it at that. I
You
mean,
didn't ask. Okay, I don't know. I really don't. I'm not sure.
maybe they didn't feel they needed it, clearly.
Not necessarily. I don't know. You have to ask him. I'm really not sure.
But from what
So
we can
you're
do as
looking
the
for
village,
somebody to ticket on Village.
yes,
Well, I don't think it's fair to ask Chris Kindle to ticket. If we want a ticket, that's up to the village. So I would not ask, I don't think it's fair to ask. Chris
at
Kindle.
least with informal discussions with folks with the historical society, they would love to have a ticket book and to help with that, because it was a real trouble for them.
I think we should have a conversation with
Okay,
them.
okay, as long as they can get people to volunteer to do that.
So maybe we should share this with Patrice. who's on the Historical Society Committee. Enlighten her and have her.
Yeah,
work-
see if they'd be interested in working with us on parking enforcement for village. No parking.
So how would we let members of, we'd have to know who they were, and then how do
Well,
we?
they could,
how do we
they could
let
have,
them
they could have
take it?
that discussion with us and then we work out the details.
Okay, sure,
I'll reach out to him and try to get some stuff up.
okay.
Instead of going through Patrice.
Okay. So you're gonna call either Terry or John at historical, or at the Historical Society?
Patrice, Terry and John.
So you can address it at the next meeting then?
If we have an answer,
Okay.
whenever we have an answer.
Okay. Okay, 5D, Mill Road West Landscaping.
So as you know, the committee had asked for some shrubs to be planted along Mill West and, contractor had submitted a map and some plans and the committee came back and said, we don't want blue cypress. Have them suggest some other things and send us some photos. So as the staff report shows, you can see what he's recommending and the photos that he sent.
I have a question about the old gold juniper, because when I look at it,
Is that something different?
well, they gave us golden mop, am I correct?
Yep,
And they also gave us
on the second page, got it.
old gold
Yeah.
juniper, they gave us two. So my question was about the old gold. Let me ask you about golden mop, I think I'm asking about golden mop, because that can get, looks like it can be big and tall. Right, so I know that they didn't give us a lot of direction in terms, not direction, but you know what I mean. Because the other problem we had with the one that they suggested before was that, you know, it's basically ground cover. Sort of, what they.
Right, and I think that's what old gold looks like also.
It does look like that, yeah, when I'm looking at the 40 pictures I tried to find of it, but it can be a big, huge shrub too.
But the golden mop false cypress seems to go up some.
It does.
A few feet, that seemed, I don't know, looking at it, that combined with the box one. I
Yeah.
thought would be a good combination with the box.
I don't know if I love the color. I
I'm
don't,
not sure how much I can tell the color from mine.
Well, here's the.
well, if you just Google images of it, I mean,
You look
it's
at
just,
the images, but they can
kinda
also
yellowy.
be, I mean, they can also be, shaped. Cause there are some here that, you know, with pruning. They can be shaped, but yeah, I mean, it's it's called gold for a reason, so it's a goldish green for sure.
but I do like the greenery, the leaf itself.
Mhm,
I
great.
do like
I like the shape of it, kind
the
of how
shape
it
of it.
willows a little bit.
I don't know how I will like it next to the boxwood, but I think I can live with it, but it's also. I don't know, I don't wanna have buyer's remorse, and I know this is the second time. And I feel like we keep going back because they just never give us enough information.
That's what I was referencing, like, so is their vision that we would allow these to grow? And then possibly, you know, trim them in a way that, because again, some of the ones I've seen were
Well,
clearly
any of the
trimmed.
trimming
Because
is
the
actually Eric and Tim.
Report we got was from Julie,
Sorry,
but I mean, the
Yeah.
report is from you.
I was kind of expecting that they would be like, well, here's 7 different options and here's what they
Right.
look like that we've worked with as a nursery before, but.
Which goes back to all the other times that we've asked them for something and we go back and we go back and we go back. And it's constantly on our agenda because we can't get something complete. I mean, not liking a plant is one thing.
But with
But-
the options, it'd be nice to have some options of what they're comfortable with and
You know, I
have
think
experience with.
in their defense, they're looking at the area, the fact that there's not a lot of
Right.
soil and what
Wind.
grows there, the wind.
No
Yeah.
water source.
What have we done for other units of government? They're probably looking at that type thing. I mean, let's face it, government has boring plants a lot. You know,
And
This isn't.
hence not to,
Jerry, it's like,
Why
why
we
with
don't
you
want
Denise, but, you know, where it gets a little like this visual Denise, I know it's not, it's a lighter color than a boxwood would be, but that's how it could be.
If the boxwood is that similar to green color, which I think
It
it is,
is.
that's not a bad contrast. In my opinion.
no, it's a contrast. It is.
I know that the old gold juniper, in my experience, when they get old, they start. the s-
Split.
Yeah, and the centers look really
Yeah,
ugly.
they get kind
bare.
of sticky in the middle
They do. And leggy.
and not very tall.
Well, then that's when we replace them.
Yeah, you could just replace them then.
And I'm sure that would take quite some time.
So are we good with, I mean, otherwise it's gonna be round 3 and give us another one, but
I guess I'm trying to look at the plan where they have boxwood and blue rug juniper,
yeah.
which would now be. And I'm thinking.
Well, I kinda did a
If
front-
we
they
could
kinda
have
did a front
more
and back.
boxwood,
And this would just be like an accent, is that
yes.
fine with that? Isn't boxwood a little bit more temperamental in general, or no? Maybe it's just me.
So
I
does
love
it-
boxwood, don't get me wrong.
Are you thinking, it's because they kind of do more lines, are you thinking more interspersed? Because the way they've kind of laid it out is you've got a section of one kind and a section of another kind.
Yeah, I don't like the layout at all, no matter what we would choose.
And I think doing some more alternating mix would look better.
More,
Well, on the east side of the entrance to the parking lot, it is kind of mixed up, but you're right, that the longer piece is
right,
mostly boxwood out front and blue juniper in the back, so we could give them that direction though, right?
so let's give them a percentage. Cause otherwise they're gonna be like, what does that mean?
It kind of looks 50-50 here, right?
Well, on the east side, so you have 8 plants,
4 and 4.
so it's 4 and 4. So do we want 60, 70%? I want more, I
So on the
definitely
east
want
side,
more than
too.
half and half, so
So
60.
4 boxwood, 2 with the other east side. That's 6, never mind. 5 and 3.
Well, kind of talking 2/3 boxwood, 1/3 the.
Yeah.
Golden mop.
So let's say 70% then. 70% boxwood,
Sure.
30%.
I
Or do you
like-
want
I like the golden mop.
65, 35-ish?
Yeah, in that ish.
Okay. Alternating, not clumped.
Okay, so 65 of the plants that are utilized shall be boxwood and 35% shall be the blue rug juniper.
Golden mop.
Oh,
all
golden,
flavors.
okay.
There's
golden-
30 total, so
Golden.
the way they
what
have
is
it now.
Oh, false cypress, okay,
65, 35, you said, Janelle?
yeah. So it's 65 boxwood and 35
What?
golden mop false cypress.
Percent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna get real.
Yeah.
Next up, 5E, concession agreement with Bay Shore Outdoor Store.
Julie, just excuse me for not doing, you have to have a motion to accept that since you're spending money or no?
It's not approved, it's gotta come back to
Why does it have to come?
the plan. You don't wanna see it again?
No,
Not
Thank
if it's- I mean, if it's 65, 35, okay.
that's why I said, let's be very specific.
Okay.
and interpolating ish.
Right, no line. Well, they can't, it won't turn out that way anyway with the percentage.
Yes, they did.
Well, okay, they'd be
Alternating. We can take
bad
this.
landscapers if they did that.
We'll just say by consensus, Janelle, I
Okay.
think y'all agreed with that.
Okay,
And then finance committee had approved how to pay for it at their last, meeting,
okay.
using those municipal reimbursement. Okay, so concession stand, we have, or agreement, we have two of these here. So, we have agreements, as you saw in the packet, for certain services. They do expire this year, so we do, staff can't just go and renew them. We need a recommendation from the committee. And then, of course, they would go to the board if we're okay with these.
Now, I forgot to call Dave Lino. In the. And I think we dealt with this, maybe it was 3 years ago, and I just can't remember. That every so many years, the marina has to put out RFPs.
Every three.
Every 3. Okay, so these 3 years are up. So I thought we talked about treating everything equally. That we would request RFPs for anything that we're allowing a private vendor to use public property. So would that not be appropriate at this time?
I think you should, we did that with the marina. We should do that anyway, because it's not fair. There may be nobody else that wants to have something out there. But to be fair to the public, maybe there is. I mean, we have had requests. We had a request from a lady who wanted to set up little picnic baskets at Waterfront Park for people. You could, for a certain price, she'd have a picnic basket and a blanket there for you, ready for you. And we told her no. But we don't know what's out there. And to be fair, like I said, there may be nobody, but we should. And
How
also
would
see
the
what-
RFP read? Like, what, would it be broad or would it be specific?
It would be the
'Cause
same
This
as.
is outdoor rec, this is recreational, so what?
Yeah, it would be the same as the marina one, saying we're looking for vendors to provide. I'd have to look at how it reads, water-based or recreation-based services at Waterfront Park.
Okay.
Currently, we have 2 vendors. For renewing
Right,
contracts.
there may
but
be
also-
nobody and they're probably a really good fit.
Yeah,
Currently, but I remember that conversation from the past.
yeah,
I remember there was also a conversation, remember there was one about, the area and what they're, remember I think it was the buoys around it or something like that, that was fairly recent.
Well,
but
that
that's
they
not what
were
this is.
drifting into the
That's right.
swim area.
That's right. So we have Bayshore Outfitters now, and,
so go at the door.
oh, I thought you meant yeah, okay, yeah, gotcha, okay,
And Nick is on if you wanted to ask him anything.
okay.
Same
Okay,
way.
I think he's next. The other thing in terms of, they're paying their fees and late, are we allowed to charge a late fee if it's late or no?
Because
I-
we'd have to put that in our contract.
I would say that my suggestion is that we amend our contracts, and if we do not receive the check and the report, because they're smaller dollar amounts, that if we don't receive it, that it's double.
It does cause an issue for us in our finance purposes, right? Because we're trying to close out our books, so when you're not getting it on time to close out your books. It's creating an issue with us and with our auditors, so we do want to. Reinforce why we need that, so we'd want to put that in the
I
agreement
think
with
it's
whoever
fair.
we
Yeah.
have.
I
And
think it's
I
really
think
fair.
that's what Denise was saying, is have a penalty.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a level playing field, just pay on time and everything's fine, but other people pay on time, it's
Right, it's far
It's
from
fair.
the season, being
It's fair.
over December 1st.
without a doubt.
So I'll put
Okay.
together some RFPs and I'll put those out. We'll, maybe give everybody a month maybe to respond. We want to make sure we do it in time to get these approved by the committee to the board so that so the vendor can actually plan for the summer. So we'll try and have that.
Have we heard from them about renewing the contract?
No, I took it here first to say, what do you want to
Okay.
do? Because I'm not gonna ask them to renew it if the committee's like,
I
we're
know, I
done.
just didn't know if they've reached out or, okay.
And just as a side comment, the 10% seems reasonable. From the articles I saw, the state park, there's a bunch of vendors going in
There are
there.
a lot,
And
yeah.
they said there was, at least the article said it was 8% of gross, so 10% is not. Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. So and then, so I think the same conversation, moving on to 5F, which is the agreement with Segway the Door, right?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I took it by our conversation that would apply to do an RFP on both of those.
Okay,
And just see what we get and bring it back to the committee.
okay, okay,
So the committee isn't gonna review the RFP, you'll just issue it and bring back what you get, right?
Right, I'll be
Okay.
honest with you, I don't think you have time to review that RFP, send that RFP out, come, accept the RFPs, come back, look at them, get it to the board for approval.
mhm,
Hey, it's June, sorry, we're already into the season, we
yep.
probably should have went a little sooner than this.
Well, and I'm glad that Nick's on from Segway the Door, so he's aware. Because this is a new thing, I don't think we've done it before, so good.
We have,
We have? 3 years ago? Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
or 5 years ago or something. Maybe there was a renewal in there somewhere, but we have done this.
Okay,
Yeah, if you look at the packet, I mean, some of these are pretty old services.
yeah. I
We
saw it.
just,
Mhm.
we just keep renewing them instead of putting. Sometimes we don't put them up there for public bid.
Okay.
So Nick, did you have any questions? If you could unmute yourself, please. He's up there, but it's hard to
It's
see.
tough, hard for me to see that far.
Yeah. Let me,
Well, if he doesn't, let's just move on.
Yeah, let's just.
I mean, it was for our discussion.
Okay, Nick, we're assuming that you've heard that we're gonna put in our.
You know what? Yeah, you just made it so that I could unmute. I wasn't able to unmute for some reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so you heard what we said and what we're gonna do, what action we're gonna take, right?
Yeah, I heard of that. Just a brief point. You know, I'm satisfied with the 10%. That's okay. But this is the only tour that I have. I have tours in about 15 different locations, and this is the only one I have to pay for, except for the state park, $50 a year. So every other location, you know, I'm not having to pay anything. The only reason I'm paying you is because we start in the parking lot, you know, up, where is it? Oh, the sports complex. So we start in the parking lot there. And so that's the reason I'm paying you. And I've done the tour for over 10 years in Sister Bay, but you guys just started a few years ago. I was going to check that, but I can't remember how many years it's been for us.
Okay, good. Well, we hope you move forward and we hope that you get, you know, it looks like business is sort of up and down. We hope that it gets to be more consistent and it grows.
Yeah. And that is something that, you know, I have a lot of tours. I don't steer them towards Sister Bay for that reason. Because I have to pay that extra money. I have a tour that's very similar in Fish Creek, and I steer them towards Fish Creek because it's cost me $5 less per person. So that's the reason why it's not growing.
Interesting. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, next, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are on to 5G, public space audits.
So these were the audits that we received before, and we said, well, let's push them off to January. You know, I think from my perspective, I think they're good for informational purposes. You know, we don't have to act on them. They just did it kind of as a public service to say, hey, we want to help the community, we want to share information. This is what we found. this is what people are saying. So I do find them helpful, you know, it's, you know, we're looking at putting a restroom on the concession stand. That's
Right.
reiterated in here where people are saying, hey, we wish there was, you had more bathrooms or more accessible bathrooms. So I mean, there's good information. And I think it's good when we're making decisions about waterfront park or the sports complex to say, hey, what did this group of reviewers say? Are we aligned with it? I mean, clearly it doesn't always dictate our answers. This wasn't some big scientific survey. But it's good to know what people think and what they want. And are we on track with that?
Feedback from, we evaluate any of these spaces or what we want to do. We've
Right, I
got some
think
ready-made info for it.
this is a document that we should refer back to often, or I think at least once a year at budget time, which is June. This year it might be earlier. Or if we want to go through this and within the budget constraints, that we are gonna have, moving forward, that we come up with a priority list. Because there were some things in here I totally disagreed with,
No,
and I thought was
I mean,
very unfair.
I don't think unfair so much as I wondered, I mean, I'm assuming this is like a template that they use, right? I don't know,
RPAS standard, it's a standard
okay,
audit
All right.
form that they use throughout the country.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah, some of them are intentional things like, oh, the lighting's poor at waterfront.
Well, I
Yes.
completely get that, no, and I do understand that, but some of the observations seemed. Like, as you, I didn't think it was unfair so much as, you know, it didn't make, like, develop a programming calendar that includes seasonal events. Hello, I mean, we have people complain about seasonal events that we have, do you know, there's such as outdoor exercise, we have yoga every week. And we have a lot of stuff that's available through the marina or intentional intergenerational events. At our concerts, the age ranges from 6 months to 93. You know, because those are, now intentional, I'm not quite sure what they meant, but I do think in some cases, I was surprised, not surprised, but I thought, I'm not sure if that's, but I think with something like this, it's interesting because people see things differently through, their own eyes. I get it, and maybe we don't have lighting at night and maybe that's intentional. I don't know. But some of that stuff is,
Well, in some of this, like the lighting, when I'm looking at the waterfront park one, this was dated October 19th. We didn't have our new lighting out there yet. We just had the posts. Action just upgraded to all those, as you saw in Eric's report, to all those Piggly Wiggly posts. So, and we have public Wi-Fi planned.
right, exactly.
It's
Some of
not
this is on
installed yet.
is on its way, right?
So
Right.
I guess my question is, do we wanna come back to this at a later date and prioritize? Or just review the whole entire document every budget?
I'm fine with prioritizing because there's a lot here.
Right, I am
And,
too.
and some of it was, there's some things that where they asked the same question in a different way, in a few different ways, I did think that the sports complex audit was, sports complex is much easier to, kind of get a straight black and white look at. And I think in a lot of cases they were spot on. But it's a different animal than waterfront park, So, quiet space. Sports complex can be pretty quiet, but there's also Marina Park, so I'm not sure if they went all the way down to Marina Park to see. And also for shelter. And we just, significantly improved the gazebo and stuff. But anyway, I think that if we prioritized, you're 100% right. I think that's a great idea.
So what I'll do too is make sure this is in our corp, our outdoor rec plan.
And then it'll be on next month's agenda.
Sure.
But thank them. I think that whomever they got to do it, it took some time.
And they have another one they're doing in spring, which isn't the space audit, it's more about the user's experience, like.
The user's experience in both waterfront park and
Yeah.
the sports complex. Um. Okay, next up is 5H, which is establishment of a volunteer day in the village.
So I think I brought this up last month,
Mhm.
and we always talk about how we always can communicate better, and I think a volunteer day is a really good way to communicate better.
Denise, were you thinking volunteers for village business, village properties, to maybe get more people interested in volunteering to help out, like Corey and her group, okay? They're volunteering, taking care of the community gardens. I know, like, for example, where I live, or near where I live, Algoma, their entire waterfront is taken care of by volunteers. We don't have that here, but maybe by bringing awareness to volunteers, we get more. I don't know. Or were you thinking in general, the whole village?
Will we have a list of things that we would want volunteer help with?
I wish we had one. We're not very. We don't have a lot of, I mean, we have volunteers doing the flower pots.
What are the things that aren't being volunteered with that we could use volunteer
That's
help
really a good question.
without getting in the way of
Right.
Eric
Yeah,
and what he does already?
It'd
That's
probably be
key.
nice if you had a volunteer rake the beach every day instead of having the guys have to go out there. I mean, certainly they can do it sometimes, but. Or pulling weeds, you know,
But I think if we could come up with a list that we could share that, staff's got enough work to do already, asking you to
things people could volunteer. for.
leave your office to go out and, and board members to go out and just board staff, volunteers, all working together on whatever that list may be for that particular day. So when that would be, July, not a good idea. June, probably not so good either. But if we could, talk to Eric, and his crew and, see what's out there. Sure.
Even like a village trash walk in May or something.
Yeah.
Snows off the ground and get a group of people together to
Oh,
go.
like at the Adapt a Highway thing?
Yeah, except for maybe a part of the village or a park or something that would help out Eric with his spring cleaning when he's really
Yeah.
busy. And
Yeah.
to your point, get people involved and in touch, so it's not the village is over here and they're over here, they're part of it.
Well, it's great because then if people see what you're doing, I've done the highway cleanup with Destination Door County a couple different times. And it's amazing, it's actually amazing. Of course, now this is on Highway 57. And depending on where it is, but it's usually 57 in between like Sebastopol and Bailey's. It's unbelievable what you find. I mean, usually we got at least 4 trash bags filled with stuff that you never see when you're flying by in your car. I'm not sure that that'll happen here, but anyway, it's nice because then people see what you're doing and maybe then.
Well, and
get
if
more
you were,
involved.
if board and staff, I know there's not tons of us, whatever, but if you're working side by side with other people, you're shooting the what and having conversations and they're
Mhm.
asking questions and you're sharing information.
So this volunteer day would be, what opportunities are there? Pick a specific day. We all get out there together with the public and we volunteer in time.
And I'm also really disappointed because I've been asking for a really long time that we recognize Earth Day and we don't. We never do anything on Earth Day.
We don't do a lot. The Pulse does. There was an issue where they talked, it's a sustainability issue.
It is.
And we're starting to talk about it at the Pulse, actually. That'll be starting, that conversation will start soon.
But I think the least that we could be doing for our canopy, Julie, is planting a tree on
Plant
Earth Day.
trees.
Now, in Green Tear's defense, I will say, last year they went out and they handed out all those trees for Earth Day.
Right.
And you know where mine is right now? In my dining room.
Yeah, mine's pretty big. It's
Mine-
in my
It
basement.
never went in the ground and I'm praying to God I can keep it alive over winter because I found out I had no place to plant it. So I want to donate it back to the village at the Parks Maintenance Building.
That's a great idea.
Mhm.
You know, just digress a little bit here. And again, I hate to bring this up, but Algoma, and I know some people don't think they're a good example, but they do have some good things going on. They're a small community without money, so they get really creative. If you wanna remove a tree, it goes into a bank. And then somebody needing a tree can go get that tree and plant it in their yard. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, as long as it's replantable, I guess. I don't, why would somebody want to get rid of a good tree, but okay.
Well, they're building a house, they're
Oh,
putting
well,
in a
so they
fence,
take out a tree, yeah.
they're taking out the trees.
Yeah.
Hey, you can take them out, but you gotta bring them over here, ball and
Mhm.
burlap, put them over here.
Mhm.
And then if you wanna plant a tree, it's a way to encourage people to plant trees.
Sure.
Here's a free tree.
Well, it might be, and this is up to Eric, but I think anything that's labor intensive so that you can have, if you get a group together, then it's not so bad. Weeding comes to mind. I mean, weeding it, for instance, and they don't have the time, it's hard, but weeding at the old schoolhouse. I mean, I could always do that, or weeding, but that's July. You know, that's when it gets bad.
Planting all the trees we want out at Loggerquist.
Okay, so
So it's starting with a day that maybe could morph into, like the flower pot, like, angels,
right?
that it can morph into something else where people have interest.
The friends of Little Sister. They had volunteered out by Little Sister to clear paths and stuff like that in spring.
Did they do it?
I did it one year, but then nobody ever followed up.
The
on
paths
it
out there
again.
look really great now, though. I'm assuming Parks maybe did those.
Eric is doing those.
Yeah, they look good.
But those, there were like 15, 16 people that went out there. Chad Kadunkel, when he was on the board, had organized them to go out
And I
there.
think Miles went out there too, who's on
Yeah.
it. Earth Day's April 22nd. Guess it's always around that date, right? So we could, I mean, planting at that time of year maybe isn't advised, but, a little early, maybe, I don't know.
Not for trees.
No, okay. Okay, well, then, with, green tier, it's a way to start, but. Are you thinking once a month? Are you thinking, oh, we don't know.
I'm talking about once a year,
It's a year, okay,
And we grow it from there based on
As-
how it goes.
right?
okay.
Incremental.
Oh, with there.
Oh, it's
Putting
55
together
years old,
lists to
it's
bring back.
55 and 25. 55 years old this year.
Earth Day?
Yeah, which I didn't know till I Googled it. But yeah. 7 ways to celebrate. Okay, sorry, we digress. Next up is 5I, which is the department annual report that we got from Eric.
I wasn't sure we'd get this done in time to get in the pack, but Eric did give it to me. He actually had done it a while ago and sent it to me. I think this last week or week before, and then I edited it quick, but,
He did a
this
nice
goes
job.
in, he did a great job. I found the information really helpful. I was very, very proud of what Eric is doing there. He's doing great.
Yeah,
But you can see, I always get interested in the statistics. I'm always like, people like to know the statistics. So, you know, I'm always interested in like parks and recycling costs. When you look at,
so why would our parks trash costs go up so much, but our park recycling cost and Fall Fest always is about the same. We used to track it, how many pounds at going every year,
well,
but
Louise,
they were stable.
I look at it this way. You added what? How many garbage cans on Bay Shore Drive?
True. So
And how
you
many
think that's what
recycling
drove up the park trash costs?
Eric did tell me that once he put those out there, because he was getting, garbage and recycling pickup once a week, and once we put the cans out there, they were having to come like on Monday again right away.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
So, yeah, it's expensive, it's an added cost, but it also shows what
What the need was, maybe?
what the
or-
need was, you know, how you're keeping your village cleaner. Or it's not going in the business's dumpster, that's the other thing, but I think it shows that you're helping meet a need or a demand, which is, what do I do with my garbage?
Oh, somebody's someplace, or hopefully they're taking it back, but yeah, and so did the park recycling cost. Cause it's the same thing, right? Well, though, it's all commingled in those trash, the new trash can. But this is good information. Doggy waste bags. I just asked him to replenish them. He did.
But that's interesting, the bags actually went down in price.
Yeah, but I heard that they're not good.
No, he got some new ones. They're better.
Okay.
I was gonna tell him that, but he left. They got these ones that are real, thin. Trust me, you do not want a thin poop bag. But no, the ones he's using now are good.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a group now that's walking around cleaning up for the people that,
Don't.
oh yeah, we're trying to figure out what to do about them, but we'll figure it out. It's not his problem.
Potholes filled, you know, I think that's interesting. They're doing about 2.25 every year. Goes to show kind of the condition of your roads, but if you don't do something, they're just gonna get so bad. So he's been filling potholes, trying to put these Band-Aids on, keep them going.
Well, at some point,
Well,
those are
possible.
flat now, right? Cause it's, or do we just then
The
start?
roads need
You
to be
start all
repaired.
over
Start all
again.
over again.
Yep, you need to mill and clean or something with the roads.
So one thing Dan had talked about was shouldering roads where shoulders get kind of low and the cost of the gravel to get it up, dramatically increases the lifetime of that road. I don't know if Eric's on, is that something that we're still working on monitoring and doing, or?
Well, we don't, I'm trying to think of the roads that have the shoulders or the bigger shoulders.
Yeah,
And there-
but he said any of them where the gravel comes up to the asphalt, we talked about a couple of years ago and made a big deal about areas where they went in and it was like 2 inches down and they brought it up and that dramatically reduced the
Oh, I see what you're
backing
saying.
along the edge.
Sure, because otherwise,
Yeah, it's
There's
not
a
adding
rough-
shoulders to roads, it's
Okay.
any roads where the shoulder has,
the abrupt drop off and pressure that.
So they
putting
fill
on
it
the
in with
road,
gravel.
yeah. I'm not sure if Eric has been doing that or not. I don't know if he's on there.
I guess you could just mention
Sure.
it to him to think about it.
I'm sure he is, and I'm just not aware of it. It's probably just part of his, what they're doing.
But that would be an interesting statistic for next time to look at, how much gravel we're adding to shoulder roads, and I'm sure there's some longevity thing.
Sure, that
A
would be
cheap
good.
investment.
And I think it shows people we are trying to take care of the roads, which is, to let the public know, look, we are trying to take care of it. We don't have money to rebuild them, but we're not ignoring you. We're trying to help here.
Well, we're trying to stretch the dollars as far as they can go.
Should, should we be putting in the CIP a placeholder or just creating a page on the extension of Canterbury or Applewood or anything? I mean, it's simply nowhere to be found in the CIP.
Right.
And not that I am willing to spend any of this dollar.
You're looking at my report?
Yeah. Should Vlad not be creating a page with those extensions?
I think. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to talk about that and make a recommendation, Canterbury this last year, I reached out to, when it was for sale, to work with the attorney, and then they took it off the market. But still had the engineer tell us, what is it gonna cost, in case we can find money for it. Now that we have some numbers, I think we need to look at, okay, does this go in a CIP?
So if we have a page that's created under parks, we can talk about it at budget time.
Sure. So create a, page in the CIP.
Like what I was doing today.
Kind of catch our road reconfiguration projects.
Yeah, and we've always done like the existing ones, where maybe we're gonna redo Cardinal or something, or Bluffside. We've been pretty good about putting stuff in there, but these are big capital planning projects
Yeah.
where you're actually planning for the roads, which are expensive. We need to think about that.
What does urbanizing mean?
Urbanizing means curb and gutter, and a sidewalk, lighting.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that. I Googled it, but I want to be sure. I knew what was going on.
So it's just a page in the CIP for the extension of Canterbury east to Woodcrest.
Well, I would say
the-
road planning
Yeah.
project.
Future road plans.
Okay. That a page or pages be created in the CIP for future road planning projects.
Yeah, it was Canterbury and Applewood.
Okay.
I think they should. Yeah.
The possible extension of Canterbury Road east to Woodcrest and the extension of Applewood.
To Woodcrest.
Okay.
And then, do we want to keep addressing the other roads the way we do right now, where it's in our regular CIP where we're for road repair?
Yeah. Because those much smaller.
Right.
I have a question
Unless
about,
we're talking about all field, the entire length of Field Crest.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
mean,
lot of
that's-
road,
that's-
oh, no, that's okay. I had a friend, I have a friend that lives on Mill Road and the culverts, many of them on Mill Road, you like go from this is Mill Road East. Go from Mill Road to the homes that are around Pheasant Park. Those culverts are getting clogged. Is that their responsibility? Is it the village? What are they?
If it's on their property, it is their responsibility. If it's under their driveway, you know, if it's one that's going under the road, then we do it. We,
If it's under their driveway then, so here's the road they turn in, this is their driveway. If it's under there, it's their property.
right,
Okay.
that's their culvert. And we wrestle with this, cause a lot of times they'll call and we're like, no, you know, that's your responsibility. Eric has been out, no, this past year, this past summer, Eric and Megan actually started a program where they're going out and cleaning out these culverts. And they've actually found cracked culverts and stuff like that, so we have a program in place now, we started it this past summer. But a lot of private parties want us to clean out their culverts. We can't do that for liability reasons, and it's taxpayer dollars, right? We
And
can't
it's
just
their
go and
property.
clean somebody's, it's like
Okay.
shoveling their driveway.
So my direction to her would be like, who does that for? Who would they,
I'm guessing it's the same person we've talked to for quite a bit,
that asked? Oh, the person that asked me is Sue. West.
she can call and we'll explain that
Just
to her,
give
but
or a
if,
suggestion for a contractor or something, because I don't think it's just her property. I don't think.
yeah, if it's under our road, we're gonna clean it, if it's under their driveway,
Uh-huh.
then they're gonna clean it,
Okay,
or private road.
okay.
That area gets a lot of complaints on.
Well, it's pretty well traveled. I don't know what creates that, but it's pretty well traveled. I mean, it's just growth, right? Isn't it just
It's-
weeds and stuff?
There's a lot of drainage issues out there, I don't think. Yeah, anyways, you have stuff, growth or stuff that's flowing through there and, clogs it up.
Hmm.
A lot of dirt builds up and then you get the weeds growing in there.
Mhm. Okay.
Just real quick before we go on to this, I just wanna make sure everyone is okay. You saw in my report here that we're ready to start that triangle project. So we're gonna start meeting with Jennifer to start the survey. I just wanna make sure that's not a surprise to anybody, but we planned on that. It's in here, they're ready to go.
Been waiting on it for years.
So the survey will be in January or February, right? And then it's a public input or something?
They're gonna go
Yeah,
through,
in the
they're gonna, prepare some plans. I've already talked to them about some stuff that came out of the plan commission meeting, which is don't take down the big trees, don't take down any stone walls. Try to preserve the historic look of the area. And so they'll start that and meeting with people, and then there's also some drainage issues on some of those properties where instead of draining through a parking lot, the drain was flipped back into the guy's yard, so his sump pump is always going. That's the type of stuff they have to engineer and look at first. Once we get it all figured out, then we'll start meeting with people and having those public sessions.
Okay, so does the triangle include Bluff side,
Yes.
so from 42.
Yep.
So Maple and Bluff side from 42 down to where Mill Road dead ends into Maple, I guess that is,
Yep, and Parkway,
and
Parkway.
then Parkway, okay. Yeah, that place, that whole area is a mess.
I mean, that road hasn't been touched since it was put in 1972,
It's bad.
Kind of looks like.
including with all the pipes in the ground.
Well, and then would it also include oh yeah, Parkview. So Parkview is the homes that are the little cottages, actually, they're opposite the parking lot, right?
That's where
Because
some
those
of
are-
the big drainage issues.
Exactly, those are,
Yeah,
they're like, those are not underwater, but there's a lot of water back there. Okay,
some of that was enhanced by. I can think of one in particular where a business did some work and they filled a lot. And. Nobody stopped them. And it has resulted in flooding, you know.
Yeah, no, it's drains.
Yeah.
staff reports that we've reviewed, I think, matters to be placed on a future agenda or referred to committee. If we could talk about the current dog park at the next meeting, nothing, I don't want to get into the weeds or anything, but I do have a couple of ideas and things that maybe we can talk about. I know it's not in the budget, I understand that, but, figuring out a couple of things that we could do short term to mitigate some of the low area where it gets really wet. And then also, on the west side of the fence, there's all the brush and the bushes and stuff had to be taken out for the, yeah, I mean, I can look into it, but there's, in that far corner, at one point or another, we installed what do you call it, like a mesh at the corner on the fence that's installed and attached to the fence. So I don't know if that was meant to be a wind guard or not, I'm not sure what it's meant for, but it does help for wind. And so how much would it cost to extend that for the extent of that east fence? You know what I mean? Because there's no, there really isn't any windshield or anything there, and I don't know how expensive it is. It's cloth. It doesn't look like it's super expensive, but I don't know. But anyway,
Okay, we'll put it on there. I know, last year, I think we've talked about this, last year staff was supposed to create the survey. We did talk about this.
yeah, we
Then it
did.
was put on hold and now we want to
Yep.
talk about that again.
Yep,
So there's a lot to talk about with that.
yep.
You know, real quickly while we're on this conversation, and we'll see it. Let me know if you want an update on this on the next agenda, but you know, for the new parks building, we thought we were concerned about how much soil, how much virgin soil we had out there, how long until they would hit that, how deep until they would hit it, how much filling was out there. Little game for you. How much fill was out there before they hit virgin soil? Depth. What do you think? 5 feet?
Before they hit Virgin, I don't even know what was there before then, but I don't know.
Well, it was sewer lagoon, so how much fill did they put out
Oh,
there
I don't know.
years ago?
I bet not much. 10 feet? I don't know.
Who's saying 10 feet? Here, come on, play the game.
You want us to do it in feet?
What else would you do it in?
Inches.
I'll tell you,
Okay, 10 times 12.
they went down 16 feet before they hit
Still in-
virgin,
still.
which means all that had to be hauled out.
Wow. And how many square feet? I mean, ooh, okay.
Does it also mean it have to get built back again?
Some of it, yeah.
There's there's some new soil there and gravel. That's there now.
Where did they haul it
So
all to?
that spot really dipped.
Do you have a construction,
Oh,
what's
okay.
the contractor on that?
Yeah, there's all new dirt, not new dirt, but it's bright, shiny, new dirt, looks like to me. With some gravel.
Well, and then they have to, landscape around
So
there,
actual
do the civil site.
standing water there at one time, because 16 feet down with that kind of dip.
Well, it
in
was
the
the sewer
grade.
lagoons, the old sewer lagoons. And then when they converted them, when they built the treatment plant, they had to fill the lagoons in. And we've all been like, well, how much did they fill? There's no record of it or anything. So we're like,
Yeah, I always would have thought those lagoons were a few feet deep, not.
me too. I think when we talked about it originally, we said, well, maybe 6 feet, because we had a soil scientist out, soil report as part of our project. And they went down so far and they were still hitting fill. So anyways, they kept digging, and this week we found out they went down today, after the guy told me, he said we went down 16 feet before we hit virgin.
And this
soil.
is only under where the building is.
Not where cold storage was, but where the building's going.
Right.
Okay.
We know from air photos that cold storage area was a little more, less disturbed.
Yeah.
Cause it was the back of the property.
In the corner.
That was the interesting fun fact for the day.
Okay,
Okay, so for next meeting, you want parking concerns, Mill Road East, parking concerns, Chris Kindle Market,
fall challenge.
public space audits, potential improvements at the existing dog park. And,
Fall challenge parking.
okay. So that's the peninsula fall challenge.
Yes.
Anything else?
Somebody else does, okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't want to think finances. Yeah. Ballpark.
I spent 6 hours
I know,
yesterday
Denise,
and 3
that's
hours
why I
today.
asked.
I have a lot.